everybody, and welcome to the Spoiler Warning Podcast. This is review number 660 with a review of The Mitchells vs. the Machines. I'm Christopher Schnese.
And I'm Stephen Miller.
And if you're joining us for the first time, the Spoiler Warning Podcast is a weekly film review program. Each week in the show, we're going to dive in, debate, discuss, and argue over the latest films coming to a streaming platform near you. This week, we're talking about a little film that came to Netflix. This is something that was going to go to theaters. But, due to COVID restrictions and all that stuff, it got pushed back. And then eventually Sony sold the distribution rights to Netflix. And now we're all able to stream it this weekend. So yay for everybody.
It also, I don't know if you saw, but Sony made them change the name to Connected. And Netflix let them change the name back to Mitchells vs. the Machines. And I think they definitely made the right call. I don't know what Sony was thinking with that kind of completely generic, unsearchable name.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we'll definitely talk about that a little bit before we jump into the actual review. But if you're listening now, you might have noticed it's been a few weeks since we released a new episode. We took a little break in there. Stephen, why would we take a break from the podcast without telling anybody?
Well, if you are listening right now, you might hear a slight difference in me seeming less available, less attainable, somehow just something is suddenly up and barricaded, and that's that I got married last weekend. Yep. Christopher was there also recording the podcast of it for me. So it was great. We were continuing our tradition. We just are not releasing it to the public.
It's because we got too wasted to actually put out the episode. And everything's good though.
Yeah, but yeah, I got engaged in the pandemic a year ago, at which point I thought, this is insane. It has been 40 whole days of staying together in one apartment. How could anything crazier than this ever happen? Let's do it. Let's get engaged. And when the world reopens in a month or two, we can start planning a wedding. And then a full year passed and we are still in the pandemic. So we just had a pandemic wedding and it was great.
Yeah. Well, all jokes aside, congratulations, Stephen. And even though I'm sure she is not listening right now, congratulations, Joanna.
I'll pass on the congrats.
But yeah, so now that everybody knows where we've been, it's now we're back and we're talking about another film. And I think, before we jump into it, Stephen, you already referenced this change in titles and how unexciting the title it was temporarily changed to, Connected, was. What kind of were your feelings about this film once the trailer started coming out? Because I assume, I think we have a good history of Sony animation films and anything connected to producing, by Lord and Miller. There is. It's easy to get excited about a new film that's coming out. I think we were both really big fans of Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
I actually never watched Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
Really?
And it is one of my deepest regrets. I feel like I know the tone of Cloudy 100%. So I'm gonna tell you, I did no due diligence before this movie. None. I saw a little bit of buzz on Twitter, 15 minutes before you texted asking if we were going to do it this weekend. And I said totally, without even checking what it was. I was like, yeah, family-friendly movie. People seem to like it. Great. That is what I want this weekend. That is perfect. In my non-podcast life, I was binging movies from the 70s this week because I need to have a task at all times, and this happened to be my task last week. And so after, seeing Jack Nicholson naked one too many times, the idea of a animated kids movie, I was sold, and I was in. It took all of 30 seconds into this movie for me to be like, this is Sony and Lord and Miller produced it. That is how strong their influence, or at least the things that they choose to greenlight is immediately I was like, this is Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. I haven't even watched that movie, but I know that this is that movie.
Nice. Yeah. So then had you not seen a trailer at all for it?
Nope.
Gotcha. So, I mean, obviously I was excited when this was announced, and it seemed like it was going to be something that was going to be pretty awesome. I'll be completely transparent and honest. When the first teaser came out for it, I'm not sure I was totally on board with the oh, this is a takedown about how everybody stares at their phones and all that kind of stuff. And like, I think that kind of bugged me because the level of satire was not there. Like, obviously the jokes were there. Like, in teasers and stuff, I laughed at the weird dog, and stuff like that. But like,
famous celebrity Doug the Pug playing that dog.
Okay.
That's what I learned. He's we'll talk about it in the movie.
All right. But yeah, I think for a little bit, especially once they changed the name to Connected, I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, I'm really not vibing on this. So like when it came time to watch this film, I was like optimistic, especially because I had been starting to see people like tweeting about it and stuff like that. But also it hadn't quite drawn me in yet with what it had presented to the world so far. So we are about to find out whether it did nail what it was going for, and if it worked out for both of us. So should we get started, Stephen?
Yes.
All right. We are going to take a listen to the trailer for The Mitchells versus the Machines, and then we're going to come back and give you a review.
Let it begin.
The last humans must be here somewhere. Wait.
They're coming.
Is that a burnt orange 1993 station wagon? Or is it...
Who are these unstoppable warriors?
We're the Mitchells, the only people who can save the world. I'm super sorry, everyone.
Let me introduce myself. I'm Katie. I'm sort of a weirdo.
My parents haven't figured me out yet. To be fair, it took me a while to figure myself out.
My brother, also weird.
Hi, would you like to talk to me about dinosaurs? No. Okay, thank you.
And my mom.
Katie face cupcakes.
All of us, really.
How about we put our phones down and we can make 10 seconds of unobstructed family eye contact. Starting now. See, this is good right here. This is natural.
Every family has its challenges.
We haven't had a good family picture in years because you two are always arguing.
For my family, our greatest challenge...
Probably the robot apocalypse.
Attention all robots. Capture every single person on the planet. Ow! What would a functional family do? Butterfly formation. Yeah!
Bill, first. So we just do that, right?
Who's behind this? Pal?
I gave you all boundless knowledge, and you treated me like this. Poke, poke, swipe, poke, swipe, poke, poke, pinch, zoom.
We're the last people left. It's us. Save the world.
Katie, we're gonna do this together. Mitchell family on 3.
Mitchell family.
No.
Sorry.
Two.
Sorry.
1. Mitchell family!
Find them now.
Everything with a computer chip is alive! Mitchells engaged.
10 and 2. There you go. My daughter, listen to me! Mitchells have always been weird, and that's what makes us great. Hold on a second.
What's a Furby?
Why would someone build that?
All right, so that was the trailer for The Mitchells versus the Machines. And basically, this is a story of a Silicon Valley company accidentally unleashing the robot apocalypse, and this one family who manages to escape the capture of most of the humans on the planet has to work as hard as they can, as dysfunctional as they are, to try and end this robot apocalypse. Stephen Miller, what did you think of The Mitchells versus the Machines?
So I think it was very fortunate that I hadn't seen a trailer, because every single joke in this movie was completely fresh to me, including, like, I'm kind of annoyed that the Furby scene isn't the trailer now that I'm learning this. I thought the first half of this movie was fantastic. I was so immediately charmed by what this movie was doing. I mentioned that within like 30 seconds, I knew this was a Sony Pictures, Lord & Miller type joint. Like it has that frenetic energy. My touchstone is the Lego Movie, but my understanding is Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs also carries that same kind of joy to a degree. It is just a non-stop fun thrill ride, and that can go either way. Like I think this movie dips into territory that could have fallen very flat for me. Like you mentioned the jokes about us being glued to our phone. You know, there's stuff in the beginning of this movie about the lead character, Katie, doesn't quite fit in, and she makes movies with Dog Cop, and the movies are supposed to be very silly and very out there. And it's that thing like Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, where it's like these will either be funny or they will fall flat depending on how hard they hammer this. And the movie just nailed it. Like everything I thought would be cringy was not cringy for me, at least for when it counted in the ramp up. I'm going to say at the first half of the movie, when you're getting introduced to all the characters, you figure out the stakes, the robot apocalypse happens. I laughed a ton. I laughed a ton at the throwaway jokes, much like the Lego Movie, where you just have a mile a minute laughs. One of my favorite random gags was when Katie is upset that she is on the road trip rather than in college already, and she is looking at videos or FaceTiming with a friend who's at college, and they made a slip and slide, and somebody dives on the slip and slide and says, "This is the best day of my life. I'm forging lifelong social bonds."
Yeah.
I listened to this movie in headphones when Joanna was in the other room for the first half, and she heard me laughing out loud so much that she came out and demanded that, like, I take off the headphones and we watch the second half together. I just thought there were so many funny things. Like the execution is funny, even if the content of the joke is not that amazing. An example, again, pointing to technology, is Olivia Colman's phone character, Pal. Like, that could be very kind of overdone. Oh, people are on their phones all the time. They misuse the phone. They don't care. Look, now I'm going to strike back. But she plays it so funny. All the things about, like, you're poking my face and stuff. Like, they sell the jokes with sheer energy, even when the content of the joke is maybe not batting 100. I love the enhance filter gag when Maya Rudolph, the mom character, tries to enhance their photo into them looking fun, like Chrissy Teigen and John Legend's family are fun. There were so many laugh out loud moments where I was just like, this movie is so entertaining and brimming with jokes. When I think about the plot, my first thought, which you and I are probably some of the only people on the planet who will think this is the plot of Next Gen, a movie that we reviewed a few years ago. And where Next Gen, we both liked it, but criticized that it basically was invented by an algorithm. Like, it feels like a movie that just said, what are all the things that will do well on streaming? This movie has basically that same cocktail of things. It should be straight down the middle, feel okay, but not great. But they just sell it by sheer force of, like, there's energy, there's heart. It is a very good-natured movie. It is a very strange movie that is happy to be strange. And I found all that just incredibly charming. And it made every kind of plot mechanic that felt a little bit paint by numbers, I didn't care, because it was just so much fun to watch it happen. I keep saying first half because I think when the movie becomes we have a mission, now let's execute on it movie, like many things in this genre, it doesn't quite hold my attention the way the first half did. It started to strain a little bit. I think I would have preferred the 90-minute version of this to the, like, 110-minute or whatever we got was. Like, the movie is still fun, and it still has, a joke a minute, and it's still, I just feel like that energy level you can't maintain that for that long. But nothing about, like, the second half, which I still thought was, like, perfectly good. It just, my laughs a minute went down dramatically compared to when I was being introduced to all the characters and all the ideas. When it became more about calling back and tying things together, I was, like, just a little bit less high on it. But overall, I just thought it was, like, charming and lovely and, like, completely infectious and a fun movie that was fun to laugh at. And I had a blast. And we'll talk about Doug the Pug after you tell me how you feel.
So before I even go into talking about the content of the film, I really want to touch on how unbelievably gorgeous this movie looks. Like, I mean, it's clear they're building on top, like the Sony Animation Studios is building on top of the tech that they made for Into the Spider-Verse. But it has a look that's really unlike anything that I can think of off the top of my head. Like, it looks so rad, and it's doing the thing where sometimes like just smile lines on the face are 2D on top of the 3D exterior to the person, and something about like the texture of what they chose to make, like everything looks like it's not quite Paperman style, but it kind of has that feel of what Paperman has, where it's like, I understand that this is probably a 3D scene, but it also looks like it's a 2D drawing on top of it. And it looks, and I know that that's a different studio, but like, I really, really appreciate it. Like, especially anytime you got really close in on somebody's face, like I was constantly in awe at like how amazing this film just looked at all. Like it kind of impressed me as much as Wolfwalkers did, even though it's a completely different like genre of animation. But yeah, I just thought this film looked amazing, and I'm excited to see what else the studio can do, because it looks obviously very, very distinct from Into the Spider-Verse, but it also just looks like it just looks very has a weird texture to it that I just love. I can't put my finger on it, but it made me really, really excited just to watch every little nook and cranny of what this film was doing. Now, going back to the actual content of the film itself, I'm extremely positive on this film. So I'm just going to start with one of the negative thoughts in my head that I had while watching the film, is that, and it relates to what you were bringing up. Like I also did want to bring up next gen and this idea of something being made by the algorithm. But what's interesting is like Netflix does make things based on the algorithm. Like you can watch a film and see the pieces of all the other films that played on Netflix that did well, and you can go like, okay, I can see why they greenlit this, because it basically checks all the boxes of these 3 other films, like, you know, character who's blind, you know, like little child, like all these like different things, right? Like you'll see them compile a film by its constituent pieces and build up to something that they think can match whatever their algorithm does. So what's interesting is this film was not a Netflix film originally, but then was sold to Netflix. But then when you watch it, you see all these pieces where you're like, all right, so the setup to this film is a Goofy movie. The robot apocalypse is obviously taken from Next Gen, as you said. This one you won't get as much because you said you haven't seen it, but the father character is basically the father from Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Like there's literally a scene that is either, it has to be an homage to a scene towards the end of that film with the father, where it's like there's no way that this is completely unrelated or it was an accidental coincidence that they did it. But it's like you can just see this film being pieced together to match all those things. All that being said, the reason why that didn't affect my enjoyment of the film is because this is actually a really touching, deep family drama set amongst this wild, silly, jokey robot apocalypse. Like as I kind of mentioned in the preamble to the episode, I didn't think that like the biting nature, or I should say the lack of biting nature of the takedown of technology in our lives, like this film is not even remotely trying to even come close to being like Black Mirror or something. It's not really. Exactly.
And that's where the trailer, what I heard, seems like it's selling a kind of small picture of it. I don't think this movie is a takedown of technology. This movie is letting us see the way the dad feels about technology, and it is letting us kind of agree with him and also kind of think he's an out-of-touch moron, right? Like, this movie does not care where you land in the end. It's just trying to have fun with the idea that someone would feel that way.
Yeah, but somebody's still inserting jokes. Like, there's a scene towards the end where the leader of this company says like, oh, so building an entire network that like steals everybody's information and blah, 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 and giving it to a powerful AI was a bad idea. Like clearly that is a joke of a thesis for like what is happening in this film, right? Like it's just not trying very hard. And I think that sort of world that it was in kind of like, it didn't annoy me. Like I wasn't getting defensive about it or whatever, but it was just one of those things where I was like, you're going for low hanging fruit here. Like this isn't that funny, right? I get it that the family can't make eye contact for 10 seconds without like popping a blood vessel in their eye or whatever, but that part of it didn't seem that funny to me. But what is funny in this film is all the little gags that aren't actually the society, like just the little things. Like there's a joke related to the pug that made me like cry laughing like right at the end of this film. That was just like, it was so perfect because it hit both the comedy, the callback, and the emotional stakes of it. That like I was like, man, this is fucking brilliant. I love this. And there's just little moments throughout the film that just had me cracking up. I also had a similar experience to you, where my significant other heard me just laughing out loud several parts of the film, but she did not come over to watch the film with me. So that's the one difference there. But yeah, it's a really interesting film. But like really, I think that this film is a very, very, it has really great messages in it. And I think it really handles the family dynamics a lot. Oh, also, sorry, backing up, the one other thing that I meant to compare it to, but I forgot to, is the mother from Onward. Right. Becomes quite literally the mother from Onward at some point in the film. But yeah, anyways, going back to where I was, like, I really think that what makes this film as strong as it is not the sci-fi story. It's not the tech takedown. It is just this family dynamic and how much the sibling relationship is, how much the husband-wife relationship is, how much the father-daughter relationship is, and kind of just bringing in all that stuff full circle and having all those moments come back where you dip back to things that were said earlier, or you see how much a character is putting into what they're doing for another person and how they genuinely worry about how that is going over that. Like, I found this film surprisingly moving while also being incredibly funny. So the cast is just amazing.
It's one of those movies where it was so fun to just over the course of the movie figure out who was voicing what character.
Yeah.
Like I got Danny McBride pretty quickly. Eric Andre and Olivia Colman I got right away.
Yeah.
Fred Armisen I got. Others I took forever. Like I never figured out Abby from Broad City was doing the voice of the main girl. Conan O'Brien is in this movie.
Yeah, it was right at the it was towards the very end, and I was like, oh, that is Conan O'Brien.
Yeah, it's just a stacked cast. And there's like a real joy in just figuring out who is doing what, which leads me to Doug the Pug, who is an actual dog on Instagram, who has more followers than we have probably had downloads in total of anything we've ever done. This is a dog with 3.9 million downloads, and according to the credits of the movie, every noise that Monchi makes is actually recorded from this influencer pug. So
interesting.
There you go. And now I will send you a link to an Instagram pic of the pug celebrating that he was in the credits of this movie.
Oh, great. Let me click on this. Oh, hold on.
It's making you sign in.
It's making me sign in. Technology, folks.
Can we drop in one of the times when you talk about us being glued to our phones, the Tim Robinson in the hot dog suit talking about like how we're so connected to our phones right before he lists all the porn websites?
Perfect. We've been sitting here talking all day, and you all never bothered to learn my name. We're so buried in our phones. Instead of giving someone a real smile, we send an emoji. I mean, we don't even look at porn on our computer anymore. We look at it on our phone? Pornhub, Xtube. I know these names better than I know my own grandmother's. YouPorn, XXN, RedTube, panty jobs, homegrown Simpson stuff. All great, but I ask you this. If I was a big old guy with a big burly white beard, would you still be yelling at me?
All right, now I'm looking at it. Very nice, very nice. Thank you, Instagram, for letting me go directly to this.
3.9 million followers. It's Doug the Pug.
This dog looks totally normal. Doesn't look like a loaf of bread.
No, I know. This would not confuse my hot dog, not a hot dog detector at all.
But yeah, so Stephen, my question for you is, obviously the people involved in this film are incredibly clever, and nothing can really be that much of a coincidence. I already referenced that the setup for this film is basically a Goofy movie. There is a scene where our lead character has to take out a drone using a fishing pole. Mm-hmm. And the dad's like, yeah, hon, like 10 and 2. And he's just like teaching her how to like cast the fishing. Like, could that possibly be a nod to Goofy movie? Like acknowledging that it's picking off the thing for it?
It could be. Honestly, I haven't watched Goofy movie in so long. I would really need to refresh myself on it. But I think, so here is one of my maybe universe brain, nothing is accidental in this movie. The lead character is clearly being coded as queer early in the movie, even though I don't think they make that explicit until the very, very end.
Yeah.
But like you knew it was coming. It's kind of like part of the subtext of she's finding her own tribe and coming into herself in multiple different ways. Early in the movie, when she's first introduced, there's a montage of her like trying on different outfits and stuff, and generally being a little bit of an outsider in her school. It cuts from that montage to the mom holding the pug, staring at it, saying, "You can look straight." And I really don't know if that was a nod to like the pressure that she felt from her parents or not. But that was something that I felt right away in this movie. Again, having not read anything about it, that was how quickly I was like, I feel like this is coding something.
It also depends on how much of the movie in a overt, because there are moments in the movie where the film you were watching is like on a meta textual level being edited by her, right? Like she is doing things to present information to the audience where she's in control. So the question is everything before those moments also her editing the film? Because that would fit in line with the type of videos that she makes where she's like putting in these little things.
I think yes. I think the whole film is edited by her. Everything that we watch is edited by her in some way.
Cool. So more seemingly homages. Obviously this company that creates this AI, the AI itself is called PAL, which on the one hand is pretty clever because it's like imagine if Siri was called PAL and you'd be like, "Hey PAL, could you set a reminder for this?" And it would do it. Like that's fun. But also PAL, HAL.
Yeah. Oh, I definitely think the HAL reference is there.
Yeah.
That was something I was thinking about for sure. But it's also just a good fake Silicon Valley company name because it's like kind of Apple and kind of PayPal and kind of like it has that simplicity where it could be a lot of different things at the same time.
Yeah. And then clearly the Furby that you were upset about being in the trailer, the large Furby is clearly Godzilla, like even has Godzilla's breath, which why would you build that? Like if the machines are taking over, like I get a toaster.
A character shouts that exact thing.
That is true. Somebody does shout it. But yeah, like I get like a toaster being able to superheat its coils and do bad things, or a vending machine shooting soda cans at you. Like, sure, in a cartoon world, I get that. But having an axe, like somebody making a giant Furby that has like giant whatever the energy is in Godzilla that can just shoot, like it's literally like some of those felt like shot for shot scenes from Godzilla versus Kong. But it's like, that can't be, right? Unless they were both being like edited in the same bay and somebody like saw an early cut and was like, we're doing that.
I guess I don't know how much Godzilla vs. Kong was delayed in order to know how likely it is.
That is true, I guess.
But yeah, so for me, and I don't want to be down on this film because I had a great time. Like I had a great time with it. But for me, the mall scene with the Furbies, that is kind of where the film turns from this is all so inventive, what the hell are they going to do next? There's a new joke every minute. There's so many funny, quippy things happening, into, okay, now I'm watching the family adventure movie wind to a conclusion. Like, for me, if I can pinpoint the moment at which the movie stopped being I'm laughing every 30 seconds into like I have a smile on my face, but I'm definitely like I'm ready for them to wind up, it was around then.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is. Like, I thought the big Furby shouting things that are subtitled, like, the end has come, blah, blah, blah. Like, I thought that was funny. It was just, it was funny in a different way than the movie before it. It started to be more like, now they are throwing every idea they have at me to keep me laughing. I don't know. I felt like something shifted in the movie around then when it started to be wacky. It's the same. I don't want to spoil too much, but there is a moment in the film, you referenced the mom being much like the Onward mom. And that happens in this movie. And that is an example of one of the sort of things that is still funny and playful, but in a much more traditional animated family film way than some of the humor that came before. And overall, I just felt like there was so much original content in the beginning of this movie, in the setup of who they were, how they related to other people, what she wanted out of college, how they felt about their neighbors, how the robots behave. Like, there was so much of that. And I just don't think it quite had the juice to carry that throughout the whole movie.
Gotcha.
But the goodwill is, like, there's enough goodwill. Like, I'm never going to turn negative on the movie after that. Like, it's fine.
Yeah. I think for me, well, first of all, one little nitpick is, like, the mall scene that you're talking about. What I really hated about the mall scene is, I won't say exactly why they're there, but that scene, in the trailer, you hear the lead character yell, "Everything with a computer chip is alive," or something like that. Mm-hmm. And she's holding a laptop that is not alive.
True.
And I was like, I don't know a lot about computers. But I'm pretty sure
I know that laptops are alive.
The thing called a computer has a computer chip, at least one in there. So I definitely think it was funny how they sort of went for the jokes at the expense of actually staying like the rules that they've set in their universe. Like, the fact that, like, they have to do one thing to try to stop something, but also you can just do this other thing that also stops it. But it seemed just a little weird. But yeah, for me, it kind of, it didn't really bother me, because I think when it started to transition away from being a laugh a minute, it had already become like an emotional beat a minute. And it was like, now I was vibing on this film from this other standpoint, where the jokes were like little bits of respite from like the emotional like tugs that it was doing for me. And I, like, everything else kind of just became, it basically didn't bug me. Like, at the end, they're basically, they're becoming way more skilled at what they need to do to try to fight the robots than they were at any point in their entire life before that. But I kind of forgive it, because it's sort of just, it is what it is. And I know this type of film that I'm watching, and I kind of don't care anymore.
Yeah, of course. It comes with the territory, with the genre. Like, I would be hard pressed to think of, like, the only kind of movies that don't follow that begin laugh a minute would be, I would say, the Lego Movie. That stays laugh a minute the whole time. And that is very hard to do, and you don't have to do it. It's just I definitely got emotionally invested. There is a montage that the lead character watches in the car, maybe like 2/3 of the way through this movie, or so, a little later than that. It's toward the end of the movie that got me pretty damn good. It is their version of the Soul montage, or, other things where the movie just shows you life in a little, 30-second period. But yeah, I don't know how to explain it. Like, other than that moment, I don't think they quite have the emotional hooks in me that, like, a Pixar can do. What they have is the disarming laughter that can make the emotional stuff hit. Yeah. And when the laughs die down right around the time the emotional starts come up, I don't know. There's something about the balance that, like, doesn't disarm me the way that I feel like it would have if I was laughing, 30 seconds before, and then they hit me over the head with something.
Yeah.
But it's a minor complaint. But I just think they could have made me cry instead of there was one moment where I definitely had the, like, oh, oh, I feel it coming. But
no,
that's as far as I got.
There is definitely like at least 2 moments that made me like well up a little bit and get a little misty.
Yeah.
But the thing that I'm referencing, the callback to the dog, that's when like a tear actually fell, because of like it was the culmination of all the emotion plus this hilarious callback, and I was just like, oh, I don't know what's happening in my body.
Yep.
But yeah, it was pretty great.
Yeah. I will say, so Joanna, my wife.
My wife.
Yeah. She joined me halfway through and watched it and decided like she wanted to watch the first half from seeing the second half. So like movie definitely stays good. It stayed good enough for someone to come in halfway through and want to revisit the rest of it. I just feel like the first half was alchemy and the second half was a little bit more standard fare. The second half was more of what I remember Next Gen making me feel, which is like, this has the emotional goods, but I also feel I see like the seams a little bit more.
Yeah. And I think too, one of the things that I really, really love about this film, and you know, besides just like the jokes and stuff like that, is the attention to detail for the little things. Like in any other film that is doing a thing where a child likes to make videos, no time is going to be spent on the video itself, right? It's just going to be something silly. But like the cop dog video that you like, episode 5 that you end up watching later, like that's a fully thought out idea which communicates an entire relationship between 2 characters. And it's like, it's brilliant the way it's handled, and the way that it's used later. I feel like it's just like the idea of a character who isn't fully in touch with his emotions and can't seem to articulate the way he wants to talk to his daughter, stumbling through trying to make an analogy to her own video. Just like, I thought that was like perfect.
Yeah, that was great. I love I'm gonna have to paraphrase the line in the first Cop Dog, but it was something like he walks into a room and he's like, "There's 2 things I know how to do, and that's sniff my butt and catch criminals, and I'm all out of criminals."
I did crack up at that. Oh, good times.
Like I think the lead character, I know she is not actually played by a teenage girl, but she does carry some of the same something that made me God, I'm blanking on the Sundance movie or the South by movie that we watched where I really liked the teenage lead character now.
The Fallout?
Yeah, The Fallout.
Yeah.
Like, obviously very different movie, but what I loved in The Fallout primarily was how much the lead character really seemed to get at something about like the mix of irony and sincerity that the new younger generation seems to have. And like, even though Abbi Jacobson is like considerably older, the person voicing her, I felt like the Katie character nailed that. Like Cop Dog is a great example where it isn't just that is funny and kind of dumb, but it's like she knows that line in particular doesn't make sense. Like if you were gonna bust criminals, you would say it the other way around. You wouldn't make it sound like you're about to sniff your butt. But it just felt like exactly the kind of humor that I would believe a like 17-year-old girl right now would do if she was like cool and knew how to make movies. Like there was just something about it where I felt in tune with the Zoomers watching this movie.
So I will say, like on a separate point related to the same thing, like I one of the things that did weird me out is, to me, that both children characters felt authentic as children's, but their voices sounded like adults to me, like full on grown adults. Like it just sounded like adults doing a child voice. And it's like, it didn't bother me at all, but I was just kind of like, oh, interesting. This seems weird. Like I just clicked on the IMDb for the person who did that character, and I can't see any of the information.
Well, so the one who voiced the other kid is the director and writer of the movie.
Okay, gotcha.
Michael Rianda. But yeah, Abbi Jacobson, the Broad City person, did Katie. She worked for me. I would have believed that was a teenage girl that was doing that voice. The younger brother, not at all. But
Yeah. Also, I'm just going to complain about for a second on whoever's adding quotes for the characters on IMDb, because there are 2 quotes for the kid, for Aaron. And quote number 1 is Katie saying, "Aaron, do you have a credit card?" And Aaron saying, "I'm a child." That's the full quote they put on there. And then the other quote is Raptor Bash, Raptor Bash. Like,
they clearly should have, "No, just kidding. I hate dinosaurs and I hate you. Bye forever."
Yeah, like there are plenty of better quotes in this film. Yeah. But we're not here to complain about whoever's putting quotes on IMDb. We're here to talk about this film and how great it is.
It's pretty great. So one thing that interests me is, I mentioned again, immediately I felt that this was Lloyd and Miller related, but they are producers, but like they did not direct this movie. This was written and directed by someone else with their own creative vision, motivated by their own thing. I wonder how involved in the process Lord and Miller are versus how much they spot people who have a sensibility that is similar to them and like empower them to do something. Because it is such a strong brand, and it is shocking to me that they didn't have a hand in the like joke writing of this movie.
Yeah. Or the question is, the person who wrote it write it with them producing in mind of like, they're gonna love this.
Yeah. It's like writing Being John Malkovich. It's like, I'm writing this for one production duo only. If I don't get them, this movie's not happening.
Yeah, this is not going to make a lot of sense. But yeah, any last things to say about this film, Stephen?
No, not really. I just think it got so much right about like the feeling of growing up and the dynamic of families and the love-hate relationship that you have for them. And it was funny when it tried to be a social satire. I referenced like some of the Instagram jokes and stuff. The influencer family next door cracked me up a ton whenever they were on screen, which was just not... I wanted them to recur through the movie more than they did. Just because of how funny they were. Like this hits all of it hits the personal beats, it hits the broad humor, it is quirky, it's great. I want I want 5 movies like this a year. Like I just want this to be the genre that comes out all the time.
Yeah. No, yeah, I would be 100% down with this. Give us more, give us it all. Well, I think that means it's about time to get to our verdicts for this film. So, Stephen Miller, if you're going to give us a must-see, recommend with a caveat, wait for a rental, pass with a caveat, or must avoid, what would you give it?
You know, for some reason I was going to come in curmudgeonly and do recommend with caveat, just of like, well, you know, it kind of lagged toward the second half and it didn't totally hold my attention, but I don't care. I love this movie. This was a lot of fun. This is a must-see movie. I think they just nail what they're trying to do, and I am not a child, but I feel like they made such a wide target demographic of this movie and just aced it. That is super cool.
Yeah. I think if I was trying to be, as you said, curmudgeon-y, and I was trying to like, well, let me like rate this for real and how it executed on every single part accurately, I probably would also give it like a recommend with a caveat, but I'm also going to give it a must-see, just because it's on Netflix. Pretty much everybody at this point has access to it, and it's definitely worth a watch. Like I can't imagine anybody seeing this and walking away from it disappointed. You know, you can have your little nitpicks about different things and think that they could have done better with certain parts, as we've kind of mentioned here on this episode. But I think for the most part, it nails the humor. It's pretty damn clever at like other little bits of stuff that it makes jokes about. So even though it's not the best takedown of the tech industry, it is the best takedown of my belly from all the laughing. So... So take that.
Amen.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for our review of The Mitchells versus the Machines. Stephen Miller, if people want to find you throughout the week, where can they do that?
If people want to find me, they can go to twitter.com/sdavidmiller or sdavidmiller.com.
People can find me at ChristopherInRealLife.com or Twitter.com/ChristopherIRL. You can find the podcast over at thespoilerwarning.com, where you can get a bunch of the back episodes of the show. If you want to subscribe to the show, you can do so in Overcast, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, or wherever podcasts are found. If you want to know when the episodes go live, you can follow us at Twitter.com/SpoilerWarning, Facebook.com/TheSpoilerWarning, or Instagram.com/TheSpoilerWarning. If you want to get a hold of us directly, you can send an email to fans@thespoilerwarning.com, or you can use the contact form on our site. Music for this episode will come from the soundtrack to The Mitchells vs. the Machines. Hopefully that's available. If not, it's going to be credit music. Yeah, that's it. Thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with something else. Didn't bother looking it up before recording, but rest assured,
something has to come out.
Yeah. There will be more stuff coming out soon. So later. Bye.
Later.